All right, now we're going to talk about count and non-count nouns. Our agenda for this lecture: first, we'll define a noun and the terms count and non-count. We'll take a look at some examples of count nouns and non-count nouns. We'll talk about determiners and measure words, look at a few exceptions for count and non-count nouns, do a little bit of practice, and then sum up. So, a few quick definitions. A noun is a part of speech, just like a verb or an adjective. A noun refers to a person, a place, or a thing. Common nouns are not capitalized, so words like school, book, park. Proper nouns are capitalized, so when we use a specific noun for a name of a specific person, place, or thing, we would capitalize. So the University of Memphis is a specific school. Nouns are modified by adjectives and articles. Adjectives provide description, and articles specify which we're talking about. We can think of an article as a special kind of adjective, but we'll talk about this in a different lecture. Count and non-count refer to whether or not the noun itself can have a plural form. In other words, can we count it with numbers? So, to talk a little bit more about what count nouns are, as I mentioned, they are countable. In other words, they are able to be counted. They are divisible into individual pieces. This means we can count them with numbers. They have both a singular and a plural form. Some count noun plurals are regular. In other words, we add either s or es to make them plural. Other plurals are irregular, such as person to people. Here are a few different examples of the way that we mean that something is countable. So we have one apple, we can also have 3 apples. We have one box, we can have 4 boxes, etc. Some nouns are always plural, and there is no singular form. So for example, clothes, glasses, like sunglasses or glasses you wear to improve your vision, pants, jeans, scissors, stairs, all of these are only plural. There is no singular form. You can't just have a jean. When we use these nouns, we're going to use the third person singular, the plural form of the verb. So my jeans are rather than my jeans is. Now on to non-count nouns. Non-count nouns cannot be counted with numbers, and they don't have a plural. These might be, it's difficult to quantify because there's lots of different categories, and we'll go over those in just a moment. But you can think about a non-count noun as something being a category type, something that's composed of lots of different parts or varieties, abstractions, parts of nature, or materials that make up other things. One special example would be the word news. So the news that you watch on TV, or the news that you read about in a blog or in a newspaper. This word is a non-count noun, but it's singular construction, even though that it looks plural. So here are some examples of non-count nouns, the different categories that we have to look at. So we've got abstractions, many kinds of food are non-count, liquids, which makes sense. A liquid is not something that's really divisible. Materials, activities, things that are composed of grains or particles, gases, and then categories of items. Notice that some specific things we have: advice, information, knowledge, bread, butter, milk, water, juice, concrete, homework, housework, music, etc. All of these different things are not countable. So in other words, we cannot make them plural. I can't have many concretes. I can't have 4 breads. Now, you might be a little bit taken aback by coffee, because I know that when you go to, say, a Starbucks, you say, I'd like to have 3 coffees, please. This is a specific instance because we are in a coffee shop and they sell this in a specific amount. We're going to talk about measure words here in just a moment. In general, when you're talking about the liquid coffee, it is not countable. So, when we have a noun, we often use determiners and measure words when we're specifying the noun that we're talking about. Determiners can be used with either non-count or count nouns, and measure words are usually used with non-count. Some examples of determiners would be the articles a and the, this, that, these, those, my, our, your, some, etc. Measure words would be a way to quantify things that are not in and of themselves quantifiable. So milk is a non-count noun, so I can't give you 1 milk, but I can give you 1 gallon of milk. I can't give you a bread, but I can give you a loaf of bread, and so on. Using determiners seems tricky, but there is a pattern that we can learn. When we use determiners, that gives us more information about the nouns we're using. We can use the determiner a lot of, sort of like several or many, with both count and non-count nouns. These can be used in affirmative and negative sentences. So there are a lot of boxes, there aren't a lot of boxes. There's a lot of information, there isn't a lot of information. Notice that a lot of implies that there's more than one, so we can't have a lot of one thing. Some we can also use with both count and non-count in an affirmative and in a question, but we cannot use it with a negative. There's not some apples. That's not possible. We would use a negative with any. Are there any boxes? We can use it with a question. There aren't any boxes with a negative, but we cannot use this with a statement. Excuse me. Here's where it gets a little bit tricky. A little and much can only be used with non-count nouns, not countable. We can use a little with an affirmative statement or with a question or a request. Much we can use with a question or with a negative, not with an affirmative statement. A few and many are used with countable nouns. We can use a few in a statement, and we can use many with all three forms, with a statement, with a question, and with a negative. This takes practice to get used to. Mistakes often happen, but if you can remember that you can use a lot of, some, any, with both count and non-count, and that a little and much are with non-count, and a few and many are with count. On to measure words. When we have non-count nouns, we can use these measure words to indicate a specific quantity, because even though the noun itself is not countable, we might still need to parcel it out. A unit of measure usually describes the container, the amount in weight or volume, or the shape. Container names and types are culturally based. So, for example, in the United States, if you buy jam or jelly, it usually comes in a jar. In other countries, it might come in a can. So you need to be aware of how things are packaged in order to properly choose measure words. There are far more measure words than are listed here. These are just a few examples to give you the idea. Honestly, if you want to know, you go to the grocery store and look at how it's packaged. You can have a bag of chips, a bag of flour, a bag of sugar, a box of pasta, a bottle of soda, water, juice, or wine, a slice of cake, a slice of pizza. Many of these you can also have a piece of cake, a piece of pizza, a can of soup, a can of tuna, a can of paint, etc. A few things that we need to remember. These are things that are typically problems for students, that they cause difficulties in that they result in errors. Singular count nouns need to have a determiner. Now, the determiner you choose depends on the situation and the context, but you must have something. You cannot say, I have apple. You have to have an apple, or the apple, my apple, someone. Do not use or an with non-count or plural nouns. An, the definite article, is only for use with countable singular nouns. So I cannot say the store has an information. Either the store has information, nothing, or the store has some information. I cannot say I sent you an emails. This is not possible. Non-count nouns cannot be made plural. So I cannot say we need permissions, even if I need permission from several different people. It's non-count, so the permission is not made plural. Now on to the exceptions, and this is what is kind of confusing. There are some nouns that have both a non-count and a countable form, because there are two different meanings for the same word. So, for example, we have iron as a material, like a metal that you would get out of the ground, and an iron, something that you would use to make your clothing wrinkle-free. We have the word time. Time according to the clock. What time is it? This. I don't have time. This is a non-count form, but times, in terms of repetition, I've been there many times. It takes 2 times to get it correct. That is countable. Glass has 3 different forms. Glass is the material in terms of what you make a window out of. Glasses that you wear to see well. And glasses, a glass that you use to put liquid in and drink out of. Light and lights. So light from a natural or artificial source that helps you to see. Lights, the mechanical object that provides a light indoors. Chicken and chickens, work and works. Hair and hairs. All of these are examples of words that have both a non-count and a countable form. There are additional examples, but these are probably the most commonly used. Okay, this is the first practice exercise for this lecture. Go ahead and pause the lecture at this time and read the conversation and try to fill in the blanks with the missing determiners or measure words. Consider whether the noun that's being used is singular or plural, and if it's count or non-count. And here are the answers to practice number 1. Okay, practice 2. Look at this list of combination of determiners and nouns. Which of them is correct? If it is incorrect, what should we do to change it? Pause the lecture here and work on this. Here are our answers. Notice that there are several different combinations for correct answers. There might even be more. We have several determiners to choose from. And again, this just depends on the context that you're talking about. All right, to sum up. Knowing about nouns is crucial to being able to use articles appropriately, because articles modify nouns. And we'll talk more about article usage, a specific kind of determiner, in our next lecture. A couple of suggestions for you. If this is really difficult or you don't feel like you have a good grasp on it, I recommend you use a good English dictionary to help you determine if a new noun that you encounter is countable or non-count, and also to get some examples of how it is used. If you liked the 2 practice exercises that we had in this lecture, the Purdue Online Writing Lab or the Purdue OWL has several more noun exercises that might be helpful for you, and I would encourage you to check out their website. They have a lot of good resources. I hope you enjoyed the lecture, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email.